Hey everyone, see so many people coming on. We're going to get started just like you would probably imagine. We're going to set tight for just a minute and get started. Probably not more than 1 or 2 minutes afterwards because I know your time is valuable and we have a lot of stuff to cover too. So we're going to need almost all of the minutes that we can get, but we're going to set tight for just a hot second and allow a couple more of our closest 100 friends or so join on the webinar. Man, I love seeing this. There's a few names I recognize on the call. Yeah. I can't wait until we can do this face to face. I don't know about you guys, but I need a hug. Can't wait to see you all. That's it, Jane. I like that. Awesome. Let's see. Monica, I bet you see a few names you recognize on here too, don't you?
You bet, and excited to see where a couple of people are joining in from today. I know I'm here on the East Coast, right outside of New York City. I see Puerto Rico, Trinidad and Tobago, Indiana.
So much fun. And what a common interest we all have. I met somebody the other day and hung around for a few minutes. I was like, "What do you do?" And she's like, "I'm a teacher." I was like, "I knew it. I can spot a teacher from 100 miles away." We have this common, I don't know what it is. Well, in the interest of time, it's 3:02 in the East Coast. I can't wait another minute. I just have to get started. You guys, for those of you who know me, you know I'm easily excited. It doesn't take a whole lot to get me going, but this is a topic, man, I'm so excited to talk about. So in case we haven't met, I'll just introduce myself really quickly. My name's Josh. I work for an organization called Trafera. Um, and our core business is selling educational technology like Chromebooks and laptops and desktops and class, like front of the room displays and stuff like that. But one of the things that we do, and I'm really excited about, is professional learning, and that's kind of my role at Trafera, is heading up all of our education initiatives. And today I'm super excited that we have now I can say becoming a dear friend of mine, Monica Burns. Why don't you just jump on for a minute, Monica? Give yourself. I mean, most of these people know you, but let's go ahead and have you introduce yourself too.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. I'm very excited to be here with you all today. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I saw Felipe there in the chat said, yeah, if you get my newsletter, you might already know a little bit about my work. I'm a former New York City public school teacher. I'm still here on the East Coast. New York City's over my shoulder here. And I've been out of the classroom for a few years, hosting professional development for educators, both face-to-face and virtually, sharing lots of favorites on my blog, classtechtips.com, and on my podcast, the Easy Ed Tech podcast. So just very excited for today's topic and to chat with you all today.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. Yeah. And so a little bit about me, just I'm a teacher. I still introduce myself as a teacher or principal by trade because that's a way easier to explain than what I really do for work. But I head up all of our education initiatives. And one of those initiatives is kind of getting us to understand what's happening in Google Workspace, which is kind of the theme of our talk today. So Monica, I know you're kind of a source of inspiration for me on this topic. So why don't you just take the stage for a moment, share what we need to know, because historically we kind of understood G Suite as being one thing, and I think it's evolved quite a bit. And I don't know about you all, but I kind of need kind of a refresher on that. So if you would just kind of walk us through the beginning stages of that, and then maybe that will spiral us into some conversation from there.
You bet. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. So if you are in the chat, just let me know that you can see my slide deck here, that you can hear my voice, but also see some of the captions down there at the bottom. I've got just my window shared so that I'm able to follow along if you have any questions or you're jumping into the chat. So thank you for those. I can see it right there and those nods for those of you jumping in with me today. So just to kick us off and kick off our conversation and just set the stage for what we're going to talk about today, it's really all about breaking down Google Workspace. And as you heard a little bit about my background, I'm a former New York City public school teacher, an ASCD author and faculty member, and just always excited to chat all things Google. So when we started talking about today and thinking about our time together and really breaking down this idea of Google Workspace, I'm just excited to hear from you all what is front of mind. So feel free to jump into the chat with any questions as we're talking, anything that you've been tackling with the groups that you are working with at your school site, district level, wherever you might be. And so when we talk about Google Workspace today, I'm really going to focus in on 4 different areas and break down some of the differences, some of the similarities. For us today, it's also about wrapping our head around some new vocabulary, some things that we are used to thinking about in a particular way, but now we're just revisiting with a little bit of a different angle. And of course, wanting to walk away with a better understanding of, so that if you are in a role right now where you are communicating different things to different folks in your school community, you've got some of that in your back pocket too. So we're going to look at these 4 real quick, kind of do a breakdown, talk about some of the things that I know stand out for me when talking about Google Workspace, and then we'll jump into a conversation together and talk a little bit about some of the standout features or some of the big things to consider. So we'll get started first by thinking about that Google Workspace for Education, the fundamentals. And you see 2 of them listed here at the top, the fundamentals and the standard. So the fundamentals is free for K-12 schools, for higher education institution, and even for homeschool co-ops. So if you have folks in your community who are thinking through different options for the fall, or you hear people talking about different things, you can kind of loop in homeschool co-ops to this first area of fundamentals together today. Now it is free and it is a 30-day trial during your application review. So if you are applying for this, you can jump in right away without having to worry about your application getting the thumbs up, which I think is an important thing to remember. Sometimes when we apply for things, we're like sitting on our hands just waiting for something to happen, but that's not the case here. You would be able to jump in right away. So all of your favorites are here in the fundamentals. So that means that Google Classroom, Google Meet, the calendar, Gmail, assignments, docs, slides, forms, sheets, sites, you name it, all of that is going to be there and available for you. So even if you're using this kind of freebie version, it's not going to go away. So one thing I wanted to make sure to note here is that if you are already thinking through your upcoming school year, any changes that you might make. Maybe you're joining here today because you're making a switch from something else and you've heard great things about docs and slides and all the collaborative features. I want to make sure that you know that all of that is there in fundamentals. You're still able to leave comments on student work and feedback and kind of all the things that you have kind of grown to love about this space. And it's COPPA and FERPA compliant. So if you're having conversations about privacy and data privacy and different things, just know that that's good to go with fundamentals. So keeping all of this in mind as we move forward, everything else that we'll talk about has all of these great things, right? You'll have access to all of those favorites, and the COPPA and FERPA compliance will be there as well. But Google Workspace Education Standard is kind of a next level. We're kind of moving up in levels as we're talking today to give us some kind of information to base our conversation off of. So in this case, there is a charge per student, and everything I just mentioned in fundamentals would be there and more. The same things are there with having Meet participants at a certain level, a pooled or shared cloud storage happening at a certain level, but there are some additional security and analytics, and we'll kind of unpack that a little bit more in our conversation together today. This is something, and I put that extra little sticky note there to remind us, right, as being something that might pique your interest or grab your attention as we're thinking about things today. If you are already using a third-party software to check in on different things, this might take care of some of those same things that you're using a third-party tool for. If you haven't really considered security, but it's been on your to-do list all year and just not really at the top of the list of things, we know how it goes when having to prioritize different things and make tough choices. There's only so much time in the day. But if you're looking to revisit some of those pieces, especially from an admin level, so admin security tools, this is something that would probably be worth taking some time to unpack and think a little bit more about. So some of the things that just jump out when it comes to the admin security tools is really around the communication pieces within Gmail and within Classroom. So you get a sense of what's happening in a little bit of a deeper level. So there's security dashboard reports. And instead of kind of wondering how something happened or why it happened, you're getting some of that behind the scenes information that can really help you make some more, just some more actionable decisions moving forward. Now, if you are using this standard plan and you're looking to add in an upgrade, so really thinking through some of the instructional components that are front of mind for you this year, there is the teaching and learning upgrade, which is priced out per month or per year, kind of depending on how you're structuring different things. And in this case, just like we talked about with the fundamentals, you're getting the fundamentals and more. But there are some really significant extras that might be important to you, that might be important in the future, or that you just kind of want to wrap your head around for our conversation today to think about what is front of mind for you. So here we're talking about more participants in a Google Meet, more people able to view a stream. So if you've live streamed before, like on YouTube, then pretty much anyone, right, can see it. If they've got that YouTube link, they're going to be able to watch along if you're streaming in a YouTube environment there. But if you're looking for something for in-domain viewers who are inside of your organization, this extra piece, this upgrade would allow that to happen. So in addition to those pieces, if you've been using Google Meet this year and exploring things like breakout room or different interactive features, that's going to take care of that for you too. So even if you are in a position right now where you are thinking forward to the fall and saying, we're all going to be together face to face, maybe we won't use Google Meet the way that we've used it in the past, this is still going to be something that you might want to consider or just pull into your own conversations for planning as you're thinking about what the upcoming school year would look like. So one important thing to note there is that this is going to give you some of the extra pieces and the interactivity that can promote more discussions, more check-ins, more of a formative assessment component. Of course, it's all depending on how you're using it, but if those things pique your interest, make sure to kind of jot that down or note that as well. Now, there are some Google Classroom extras here with this upgrade, including some third-party tool integrations and unlimited originality reports. And if you haven't heard of the originality reports, I know that we're going to talk about it a little bit later today. So just maybe jot that down or know that we're going to come and circle back around to that, because that's going to be an important thing that just is a little bit different here when we talk about these pieces. Now, the last piece I want to make sure that we talk about together and we'll unpack a little bit more in our conversation is Google Workspace for Education Plus. Now, this is where in the past, you might have used that G Suite Enterprise for Education to describe what's happening within this particular area. So some of the same features that you might be familiar with if you've been using the G Suite Enterprise for Education but a couple extras that you might want to revisit or think about. And as you saw Kate put in the chat there, if you've got any questions as we're talking about these pieces today, make sure to drop them there in the chat for us. So this is going to include all the things we just talked about: the education standard, the teaching and learning upgrade, and some more pieces that, depending on your role, might get you really excited, or might be some things that you want to revisit and kind of think about a little bit in terms of your priorities for the upcoming school year. So there's number one going to be a lot more support. So more robust support to help you through a few different pieces, and of course, help you tackle any challenges that might come up a little bit unexpectedly. So if you are someone in a large group, or you are starting off with something fresh for the first time, that idea of more robust support may be really front and center for you and high priority as you're thinking forward for the upcoming school year. However, there are just some pieces that, depending on your organization, are going to pique your interest or grab your attention for sure. And that includes a much more robust sense of in-domain viewers. So more folks that are able to jump into Google Meet if you are streaming something out to your school community. And there are going to be some Google Classroom extras there for you too, including roster syncing. So depending on kind of where you're coming from today or what hat that you're wearing as we're talking, some of these pieces might be kind of high on the list of things that you want to dive into or learn a little bit more about. But this is really going to be a big differentiator from, say, the free version or jumping in at that fundamentals level. So at the core, kind of setting us up to talk a little bit more about these pieces, right? At the core, there are going to be these 4 areas that you'll want to kind of think about. So the storage, so storage increase as you move up into these different editions. Enhanced security by a lot. And so if you are tackling it with a third-party security system right now, this again might check all of those same boxes or just feel like a smoother integration for your school. And that may be something that you are looking to revisit. Again, some things just weren't high priority if we were working through a lot of challenges this past year. So you might be coming in with a bit of a different mindset into the upcoming school year. There's also going to be some of those communication pieces. Really, the Google Meet for me is what stands out with some of the interactive components and the extras that make those interactions so much so special. And then the management piece with that extra support if you are using the full version or the highest tier that we're looking at today. So as you're thinking through, you might jot down yourself kind of what is high priority for you. I've got these 4 here on the list. I don't want you to feel like they're in one particular order, since your school, your district, your environment might prioritize things a little bit differently. Now, there are a couple considerations or a couple things that I want to make sure you're holding on to during our conversation today. One of which is your goals for video conferencing. If you are really thinking about video conferencing being an integral part of what you are doing in the upcoming school year, then some of those extra Google Meet, extra streaming pieces are really going to grab your attention. I would imagine they're ones that you'll want to circle back to. So if you have a high frequency of live streaming events to community members, if you're really thinking about family engagement and making sure things are ready for anyone to jump in and view, this might be something that you want to put kind of on your list of things to put on, your high considerations, if you will. Now, you'll also want to step back and think about your current needs when it comes to security within your school and district, and what you anticipate being an issue in the future. So if you are thinking through some of those future pieces, all of those security needs are things to add to your list of considerations. Now, it might not seem like this is an issue in every environment, but I would always think through what the potentials are. And if you're having conversations with different stakeholders in your community, part of that is planning for some of the unknowns. or things that might pop up and be a challenge in the future. And so same thing goes here as we're talking about those future security needs. Now, the last part here, when we talk about our list of considerations, is really the level of support required. If you know that you are in a situation where you have a really robust IT team, you have a lot of people that are working hard towards accomplishing different goals as you are making sure everything is rolled out and nice and smooth, then your level of support might be a little bit different than a school or district that just doesn't have those pieces already built out. And one more to sneak on this list here before I forget and before we jump into our conversation are just some of the ways that you're planning on using Google Classroom in the upcoming year. If you know that you're looking for some of the lower level interactions, then you might be set with something that feels more like the fundamental plan. But if you are looking for things that include more instructional tools like the Originality Reports as an example, then you might want to consider a system that has that set up for unlimited running of reports or other pieces that are particular to your needs. So these considerations aren't going to be the same for everyone who's joining us together on the call today, right? There may be pieces that you know you're having in your own conversations with your school community that are going to be a little bit higher priority or go along with your visioning for the upcoming school year. So a lot of things are happening within these spaces, a lot of changes, a lot of things to just rethink when we talk about the structure that's going to be the best fit for your school and for your district. And so I'm so excited to chat a little bit more about all of these pieces, and I'll turn it right back over to you.
Yeah, that that was really helpful. I some of this stuff I knew, some of it I didn't know. So I was kind of learning along with you all on a lot of this stuff. One of the things we've talked about a couple of times that I think keeps popping up in my brain, and I'm sure all the teachers in the room are probably, we're really getting really excited about originality reports because they do something instructionally too. And I think sometimes when we're thinking about, oh, I'm going to let you explain originality reports, but let me just set the stage by saying I think sometimes we perceive some of these tools and features as like a gotcha, and
Mhm.
originality reports don't come across that way to me. So, would you be willing to kind of walk us through that and like kind of share with everyone what the value is in those originality reports?
Yeah, so anytime we're using technology, it's all about how we're using it, right? Just because we have access to a tool or a feature doesn't mean that it's always used in a particular way. So with the originality reports, there's a lot happening. And if you've participated in an undergraduate or graduate course yourself and you've uploaded anything to Blackboard or whatever your own kind of system might be, you probably have seen that yourself, where it says this has a percentage match of something else, right? And it's running through a system of things other students have submitted, content that's online, articles, all the things that are out there, right? So really using that artificial intelligence engine to check to see how original content is and how much it matches something else. So Google's originality reports are not the only tool that does this. And if you are especially are listening in today and teaching at a secondary, a 612 level, then you've probably seen some third-party tools that help accomplish this goal. But the idea here is that the text within a submission, so students are submitting something, is put through to see how original or how unique it is. Teachers are given that report, and there's going to be reasons why those numbers are different, right? You're not going to always have 100, 95, 90% original piece of work, right? Because if you're quoting from a text, if you are working on a shared piece where other students are pulling data from similar data sets, it's not going to be 100% unique or 90% unique. And that's okay, right? So that's why when we're talking today, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Josh, right? This is a tool as opposed to a gotcha. And it's important to be mindful of that, right? When we're using anything, that this is going to help inform decisions, inform next steps. And it's also something that can be used as an instructional tool with students too. And, when I first was kind of unpacking some of these pieces and kind of learning a little bit more about some of the ways that it might connect to instructional goals around helping students. Do I need to cite this, or should I paraphrase this information? I know that as a writer, so I do a lot of blogging. So really for my blog writing, I use a tool called Grammarly a lot. And what it does is it helps me make sure that my tenses match or that my sentences aren't too long, just to really make sure things are readable. And it's funny because it'll send out an email and it'll update me and say, like, you're getting better at this, right? Like it's reminding me and teaching me. And I'm thinking as I'm writing, like, ooh, this sentence is going to get caught, right? It's going to be a little bit too long. And it changes my behavior as a writer. And yeah, I saw someone mention in the chat there, it's a great extension tool as well. And so when I think about the originality reports, it really is about how you're using it, right? If you're coming in with the mindset that it's not a gotcha, or you were cheating, or this is this sort of thing, right? You're coming in with it with the mindset that we're using this to help us grow, and that there's the instructional component side by side. I think it can be a really interesting piece. And I'm excited to hear what folks think about it. I know, I was on a Clubhouse room, I think it was last week, and someone mentioned the originality reports and just kind of their thoughts around it. So I know there's buzz, I know there's conversation. And if you're here, joining us live, and you want to jump in the chat and tell us what you think about it, I mean, I'm always interested to hear, what comes to mind for folks who are learning about this for the first time, or who have been just digesting it a little bit and thinking forward about how it might be useful in their environment.
Well, one of the fun things that I think about is when the students will be able to see the originality reports, and that might trigger a reminder for them that they may have missed a citation or something like that. And then the other thing that I think that this is just a magic trick is that it does the student to student comparison. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe, you and I have the same assignment. You submit it in Mrs. Thompson's class, but I submit it in Mrs. Smith's class. And, this will provide accountability for that situation too, where another originality technology may not catch that because, maybe they're not citing it from the internet. Maybe it's not being pulled from the internet, or it's not being pulled from a searchable place. But this will also do a student to student comparison, which I just think it makes my brain hurt about how, that's just so cool that we have that kind of functionality. Now
Yeah.
I will also ask another question. It's a little bit of a pivot, but I noticed in the platform that's called the Education Standard Edition, seems like it has a lot of feature set for security and for the on the more of the technical. Now, being an education minded person, a teacher by trade, some of these tools get quickly over my head. Can you just share, a little bit of insight into why we should be concerned about this from the management and technical piece on that particular edition?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you heard me as I was kind of going through jumping between these different tiers, if you will, right? So that jump between fundamentals and standard, right? So fundamentals being all the things that we're used to, that we love, that we use all the time in our practice if you're in a googly environment. But then that jump to standard, I think for me, and you mentioned it too, Josh, the standout piece is really around the security. And that's really where you're getting a big jump between these two different versions. And so, depending on your role, part of these pieces might jump out a little bit more for you, right? So if you are in a classroom setting, you are going to probably feel, like I do with my classroom teacher hat on, that something like the originality reports really grabs your attention. But if you're thinking through this from more of a systems level, so at the school admin level, district admin level, you might really be thinking more about the security investigation tool as something that's a little bit more front of mind, right? So for me, when I think about these security features, it's not saying, oh no, something went wrong, because you probably already know something has gone wrong. It's more about getting information to take action. So if something happens within your system, even just something like a folder was deleted by a user or altered, and it's happened, but you need some tools to help you figure out what happened and what was really going on there. So this is really about the tools to help you figure out what was happening, to see when something happened, how it happened, and that way you can get some more details that you can then make some decisions. So it's not so much to say, oh no, something's gone wrong, but more about seeing how something happens so that you can make some decisions about that. And, of course, depending on your role, this might be very front of mind, right? You might be the person who's getting messages about this or that or why or how from people. So if you are kind of in an IT department or someone who is maybe coming in to give your school support within these spaces, they might need access or appreciate access to these tools to help make their job a little bit easier and be able to help everyone take action based on the data that's been gathered.
Awesome. I know, Monica, we planned more content than what we really have time for. Our back's kind of against the wall as far as the timeline goes. So just so everyone knows, we are Trafera. We love you all. I mean, I wish I'm in the mood for a big group hug. That's what I'm in the mood for. And I know someday we're going to be able to do that again. Would you just take a quick minute and kind of plug your like, how can, if we're seeing you for the first time, how could we get to know you? Where would we find you online? Can you share a little bit about that stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my blog is classtechtips.com. So that's my website where all the stuff is. You can actually even press play on my podcast episodes straight from there too. So all the blog posts are there. And then I am at Class Tech Tips, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, even Clubhouse and all the spots. You can find me at Class Tech Tips as well.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't yet know about Trafera, I'd like to take a quick minute. There's going to be a Kate, if you want to fire off that blog, we're doing a lot of, I'm sorry, the blog. Fire off that poll. And if you want more information about Trafera, we can certainly do that. We're also launching a program that we call Trails, which is a digital lesson library that I'm so proud of. We've been working on this for, I guess, almost 2 years now, and we just launched it earlier this month. And it's just a library of really great lessons that pull on a lot of these technology tools. So if you want some information, I promise I won't try to sell you anything. You guys are getting to know me. I couldn't sell at a yard sale if I had to. So that won't be a sales pitch, but I would love to email you some information about Trails if you want it. Just any of those kinds of things. And we're also going to buy you all coffee. I hope you know that. Since you've participated on the webinar with us, we're going to send you a Starbucks gift card. I don't know how that happens, but somehow she'll wave a magic wand and we will be sending you all a Starbucks gift card. Monica, what else am I missing? Kate, am I missing anything else?
There was a question. There was a question that popped up in the chat. Is it possible to get a low originality report % based on a document that you yourself would have produced, published, or submitted?
Yeah, technically, yes, right, Monica? I mean, so yeah, it would show low originality, and all it's doing is just reporting that and it's showing you where that where the document was also cited online. So just because you have a low originality doesn't mean that you've plagiarized. In your use case, you could have been the original author and it's published, and yet it sees that online and says, hey, this doesn't look original. And in the most technical sense, it's not original because it's something that you had already written the first time. So part of that is just understanding the conversation around originality. Just because you're getting a low originality doesn't necessarily mean that you've committed some kind of foul play.
Yeah, just to add on there, it's all about using it as a tool, right? So you are using that information, analyzing that information, and of course, depending on the context, that's going to be a big piece of your own kind of next steps alongside of it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So anyway, I'll just thank all of you guys. I'm going to hang around for just a quick second in case there's more things that pop in. I know that we're running like 3 minutes over, but the poll that you have there, if you want some information about Trafera, we can certainly send that out to you. If you want to learn more about our library of lessons that we're writing called Trails, I will be the one that's personally reaching out to you on that. It looks like so many people have said that they found that they learned some new ideas. Man, that just encourages me so much. Yeah, thank you guys too. Monica, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll hang around for just a quick second in case anybody else needs anything, but otherwise, have a great evening. Go do something fun. Give your dog a bone. Do something special. Thank your teachers. Yeah, thank you guys. Everybody's typing in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. Man, that's so encouraging. I love knowing that people got something out of this. Awesome. Kate, should we end the poll here, you think, or let it keep going for a minute?
Yeah, I'll shut her down. Thanks everyone who took the time to take that.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you, Monica, for doing this for us. This is hopefully the first of many, I'd like to do a lot more together.
So much fun, great conversation, and excited to have so many people join in live today too.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, all right, sounds good. I guess I'll go ahead and sign off too. Do you have everything you need from us, Kate?
Absolutely. You guys, thanks so much for the conversation. And
All right.
if anyone has questions that's still on here, you can email marketing@trafera.com and we'll make sure you get your answers. Thanks,
Sounds
everyone.
good. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.